Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is the 28th of August 2024, and these are the stories that we will be deciphering during the course of our show. We'll begin with the latest situation as far as Balochistan and its law and order situation is concerned. We'll be talking about the different steps that will be taken, that are being taken, the resolves by the government, whether it be the provincial government, whether it be the federal government, whether it be the defense forces. They are all on the same page as far as taking the resolute action against all such militant and extremist elements is concerned. This is going to be our first segment. Our second story concerns the Indian atrocities in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Now, the people in the valley have been deprived for their rights and of their rights since decades. This is what they have been asking for, the inalienable right to self-determination. This is something that is not being given to them because of all the preconditions that the Indian government has put forward, because it does not want the people to have the right to self-determination, because if they do, then of course the decision is quite evident as to what they will do and where they will go. This is going to be our second story. All the different incidents that have been happening in the Indian Hill Valley, whether it be concerning the legislative elections or the other atrocities that are also happening in the Indian Hill Valley. Then we are going to talk about Donald Trump, who is now facing a revised federal indictment. This indictment that has been revised has happened yesterday, that has accused him of illegally trying to overturn his 2020 election loss, with the prosecutors narrowing their approach after a US Supreme Court had ruled that former presidents have broad immunity from criminal prosecution. Now, this amendment has been made so that he can be waived off from this immunity that former presidents have. Let's see what happens as far as this is concerned. Our last story concerns the annual Redhead Days festival. As well, we all know what redheads are, and this festival has been happening once a year in the Netherlands, and the people across the world are now again gathering in the Netherlands to celebrate their red hair at this festival in the southern town of Tilburg. This is going to be our last story. Let's begin with our first, and that concerns the terror incidents in Balochistan. We've been joined by Brigadier retired Mahmood Khan. He's a defense analyst, and he's Mahmood Shah, and he's online. Mahmood Shah Sahab, thank you very much to have joined us. Mahmood Shah Sahab, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif presided over a meeting of the federal cabinet. Now, there were certain decisions that he took, and these are resolves that he has been talking about today as well, whether it be condemning the terrorist incidents in Balochistan and other areas of the country, sacrifices rendered by the people and the armed forces of Pakistan in the war against terrorism that will not go to waste. Armed forces of Pakistan, entire nation committed for complete elimination of terrorism from the country. All available resources to be provided to the armed forces to curb terrorism. Also, that the doors of dialogue were open for those who did believe in Pakistan and its constitution, but no talks to be held with the enemies and terrorists of Pakistan. A, how do you view these statements? B, how do you see the implementation of whatever Prime Minister has said, whether it be in the cabinet or while addressing other important moods post the Balochistan incidents? And of course, the incidents are continuing to happen. We've heard of other small incidents that have also happened in Balochistan.
I think whatever is happening in Balochistan is not really representing the people of Balochistan. There are certain elements who are trained and funded in Afghanistan by India and maybe by America, because they are all wanting to do is undo CPAC or discourage Pakistan from completing CPAC. So the people of Balochistan generally support the government of Pakistan. There is a democratic government in Balochistan, and I think these elements are few, and they planned this I think 4 days earlier, and they executed it, and that gave an impression. And India is saying this, that whatever is happening in Kashmir, we will replicate that in Balochistan. Now, the people of Balochistan are with the government of Pakistan, and it is a false sort of operation if they do. Whereas in Kashmir, it is actually the people of Kashmir who do not want to be part of India, and they are struggling since ages. And I'm sure they will one day succeed. And both the situations or not comparable in any manner. And I think if the government gets determined as it shows the cabinet is showing, then probably the armed forces will fully support the government. And I don't think there is any chance, even 0% chance for these insurgents or whatever they call themselves. Some people like BLA, BRA, their bosses are sitting in Europe. They are being funded from there, and they have been even visited India. And being a Muslim, they have been bowing before the whatever they have in terms of remembrance for Gandhiji. So people of Balochistan are Muslim. They know very well. And who are these people? These are a couple of Sardars who have run around and they have gone.
Talk of that the people of Balochistan know and understand who is behind it, who are the perpetrators. How important then, in your point of view, is a collaboration between the armed forces, the government and these people to thwart out such elements? How can all these elements, all the stakeholders involved can come together to forge a strategy to thwart out such elements from Balochistan?
Absolutely. They are prepared. The people of Balochistan, I know them. I spent a lot of time in Balochistan and I know many people by name. I know the present chief minister. He is a die-hard Balochi and Pakistani. And I think he can do the job when support is provided to him. Balochistan, unfortunately, is a very vast area, very less population. Say you will be surprised, they just represent half of Pakistan land-wise, and the population is equal to Faisalabad population. So they are very thinly populated. From one place to, if you travel, maybe you meet another person after 2 miles. And similarly are the policing arrangements there. They are age-old. And therefore, proper police is only available in Quetta. In rest of the area, these are some old sort of thing they have. They are thanas, whatever they call it. So
I'd like to understand, you said that one of the reasons of this insurgency is to disrupt or to derail the China-Pakistan economic corridor. This is also what our Prime Minister has very recently said in another meeting, and he also talks about the vision Azm-e-Istehkam. Do you feel the need is also there to further strengthen visions such as Azm-e-Istehkam in order to give the necessary impetus to our defense forces along with our civilian forces to effectively counter such insurgents or such militants?
Yes, and we have seen such insurgencies happening and then dying down. I was there myself, 75 to 77, both in Kalat, Khuzar, and Dera Bukti and Kahan. And we know this area, and our soldiers now in the army say, my son is a lieutenant colonel, and he would be doing the same. And many such soldiers who are there, they have military background, and I'm sure they will do the necessary job which is assigned to them. It is question of days before this insurgency also become something of the past. We have seen in the past some people, they think that they can turn around the situation in Balochistan. I can assure you they cannot.
All right, Brigadier Sahab, a lot of similar sentiments have been echoed in the Parliament, in the Senate as well. I'd like to refer to what our Deputy Prime Minister Ishaq Dar said while speaking in the Senate. He offered the disgruntled Baloch separatists to hold talks with the government, but he did make it clear that violence in the name of anger was not acceptable. He also talks about political consensus that was crucial to deal with economic and security challenges, and he said that the terrorists were playing in the hands of Pakistan's enemies to create instability. Now, I'd like to begin with the second statement. The political consensus on issues such as these is paramount. Do you feel that it will happen in the coming days, this strong political consensus to give a very effective response to whosoever is behind this insurgency in Balochistan?
Yes, absolutely. The Sardars, who are normally also the political leaders, and they come around and they look at the situation, that who are these people? They are some individuals. They name themselves. There is some lady who calls herself doctor, and she is giving big statements. And you imagine that yesterday she gave a statement, and the statement was already in a newspaper in Israel. So you can see these connections of the people, and these people are to be started out by the local leaders, political leaders. Maybe they are Sardars. They are powerful, and if they are all on the government side, then these people cannot really go forward with this. And I'm sure this will become. In past, you will be referring to this, that in such and such year there was a sort of insurgency. Insurgency is not common sort of common people. There are certain people who have gone to Afghanistan and they take money from there, and then they travel all this while and create problems in certain areas.
Brigadier Sahab, there was also a lot of talk on our national action plan, the 20-point plan that was reduced to a 14-point plan with a broad political consensus in 2021. Now, again, in the wake of what has happened in Balochistan and the small incidents that continue to happen in Balochistan, there is the need to revisit the National Action Plan and to effectively implement it, as has been highlighted by different senators in the Senate very, very recently post these incidents. How do you view the National Action Plan, and how important is the a strong and robust implementation of all its points?
National Plan is a very robust and it is a very comprehensive document, which has been drawn up by people's representatives in the National Assembly and Senate. And the problem is that it needs to be implemented word by word. And I think that provides answers to all questions, to everywhere, whether it is in KP, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, or in Punjab, or in Sindh, or in Balochistan. So there is a need every time people say that why don't we implement all that National Action Plan to the last word. Certain points have been implemented, and for the rest, people are waiting. I don't know why. That is a very comprehensive document. I know about it. And those people who have drawn it, they are people representative in the National Assembly and Senate. So I think there cannot be a better document, a better thinking, which represents people's will.
So like to have your take as far as the concerted efforts that are now needed in the wake of what has happened in Balochistan, has been happening in Balochistan, also in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Of course, we have highlighted the National Action Plan, but when we look at the implementation of the different mechanisms under the National Action Plan, or all the other efforts that should be made, in your point of view, what actions, what kind of actions now need to be taken in Balochistan to not only improve the security situation in the region, but also improve the livelihood of the people?
I think that many things have happened and many things can happen. I remember that in 74, 75, when we used to travel from Quetta till Karachi through this Kalat and Khuzar. Till Kalat, there was only one shop on the roadside for tea. and remaining all was desert. The government issued these tube wells. They studied the water level underneath, eco-fire they call it, and they found that this place can be, now you can see that there is lot of agriculture happening between Quetta to Khuzdar. And all these people, some are growing tomatoes, some are growing potatoes, and they are all going to Karachi. And these people have got some job. So many things can happen over a period of time. There are things which have to be put into action now, and you will see the result after 20 years. There is a requirement in Balochistan. If there is water, if there is no water. For example, there are many people who come to a place and say they are looking for, say, gold or copper or something. So I tell all these Sardars that your first demand should be that you have a well for water for the people and you have a school. These should be two prerequisites before you start your job. And I think they will be prepared. The amount of money they spend for that exploration is much higher. And these two things, well and school, are just nothing for them. You just put it on them that you will do this. I have been telling many people like this. And as far as comprehensive, that you need forces. Maybe in Balochistan, the law enforcing agencies are less in number. If that be the case, the army should be employed in those places so that to overcome this very difficult situation which is there. Nowadays, these insurgents remove them from the scene and then the army can. And there are, in fact, two divisions in Balochistan. One is in Quetta, I'm sure, and one is in Khuzdar. They should be put to job. They should be permitted to come in aid of civil power.
All right, thank you very much, Brigadier Mahmood Shah Sahab, a defense analyst, joining us, and of course giving his take as far as what has happened in Balochistan, what needs to be done, and how important is a collective resolve, whether it be political, whether it be non-political resolve of all the stakeholders involved, to thwart such elements once and for all and move together to not only stabilize Balochistan but also strengthen it as a province. Let's come to our second story, and that concerns what has been happening in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The Indian atrocities in the Hill Valley have been continuing since time immemorial. The innocent Kashmiris are being deprived of their voting rights, their right to self-determination since decades. India has paralyzed life in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir for the last 7 decades and continues to commit massive human rights violations in the region as well. The political, social, economic rights of the people of the region are being severely violated at the hands of India. Fundamental rights like freedom of expression, like voting rights, like press freedom are nothing more than a dream for these people. India is practicing fascism in the name of democracy in the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir and violating all the democratic norms and regulations. We all know what happened in 2019 on the 5th of August. The Modi government abrogated Article 370 and took away the Kashmiris' right to self-determination. There are about 800,000 soldiers in the occupied valley who are responding to every voice that is raised against them at gunpoint with bullets. In the valley also, hundreds of journalists and activists are currently illegally detained by the Modi government. So whosoever wants to raise their voice to speak the truth are being jailed or incarcerated, or their voice silenced one way or the other. Now, to discuss various aspects of this, we've been joined in the studios by Dr. Awais bin Wasi. He's a Kashmiri affairs expert. Thank you very much, Dr. Saab, to have joined us. You know, this depriving the people of the Indian Hill Valley of their rights, voting rights, rights for freedom, rights to express whatever the truth is in the region, or the right to self-determination is nothing new. I mean, this has been going on for decades. There are countless UN resolutions there, but they are not implemented, despite the fact that they are implementable. Now there is a legislative election that is happening in 3 phases: 18th, 25th, and of September, and the 1st of October. The Modi government wants the victory of undemocratic candidates in these elections, but of course the opposition is leaving no stone unturned so that this does not happen. Whatever is the eventuality, I'd like to understand what is the legality of any election now that is held in the occupied valley, in the wake of the fact that this is a contested region, and as per the resolution of the United Nations, there are more than 2 parties to this resolution. There is India, there is the Kashmiri people, and it is Pakistan. But since 2019, the whole scenario from the Indian point of view has changed. Will the Kashmiris allow their voices to be subdued for as long as it has been going on, and will they continue to let the Indian government and Indian forces go on with whatever they have been doing?
Thank you so much for having me on this show, and very comprehensive remarks you have made in the introduction to contextualize this upcoming elections. I think that we need to understand the background of it and the significance of it, this election, because India always tried to project these elections across the world, that people of Kashmir, they have reposed confidence on Indian state, and this election is tantamount to their right to exercise of the right to the self-determination. And though when India did for the first time, there was a United Nations resolution came, and that resolution clearly stated that this state assembly has no right to decide the future dispensation or the future disposition of the issue of Jammu and Kashmir. This is number one. And after that, even if you see the electoral history of Jammu and Kashmir elections, some of the leaders of the resistance camp, they also participated in these elections, and they exercised that democratic venue, and they were of the view that if India believes that through democratic means this issue could be resolved, we can participate in these elections also. But what happened in 1987, the watershed moment in the electoral history, that there was a massive rigging in those elections, and a lot of candidates from Muslim United Front, and they were about to win the elections, many of them, but due to this massive rigging, the whole election was rigged and hijacked, and ultimately this propelled and this triggered the mass uprising in 88-89. And after that, in the decade of 1990, when these elections were held, either state assembly elections or Lok Sabha elections, in those elections the resistance camp strongly boycotted those elections. But in 2002, there was a significant shift in these elections. In 2002, Kashmiri people, they have clearly differentiated between their right to self-determination and their participation in these voting exercise. For example, in 2002, they participated it, but that participation doesn't mean that they have voted for to repose trust on Indian government.
But what happens this time also in the elections? Do you feel it will be a repeat of what you have just saying, that they will participate in it, but the essence of these elections has been lost?
They will participate. The reason is that in 2008, if you see the participation, there was a huge turnout. In 2014, there was a turnout because people they were of the view that these elections are for their day-to-day affairs, for their administrative affairs and some other things, for that they were participating it. And but India tried to this percentage or this voter turnout. Recently in Lok Sabha, people participated in the valley, but that participation does not mean that people, they have reposed confidence, reposed trust on Indian government. And this is, I can give some example. For example, in 2008, massive participation was there, but after that there was an unprecedented intifada broke out in Kashmir, and that continued for 3 years. In 2008, after Amarnath Shrine agitation, so there was almost the whole Kashmir came out against the Indian occupation. If the 60% was, the turnout, it was the trust on the Indian government, on Indian policies or Indian stance on Kashmir, then why, some people and some analysts, they were of the view that almost 1 million people, they took part and they thronged in the streets of the Srinagar. And it continued. And in 2014, 16, when Burhan Wani, he embraced martyrdom at that time. So people, they have seen that such a massive, peaceful intifada, indigenous intifada, that broke out at that time. So I think that the same percentage people may participate it, but that participation, if India wants to project internationally, that participation, because recently the Election Commission of India, in the press conference in which he announced these elections, he also mentioned that these elections, it gives a message internationally. So that also means, what does it mean?
This is what they are trying to do. They are trying to give the international body or the world a message that, look, if elections are happening in the Indian Hill Valley, it means that everything is normal in the valley.
True, very true, very true. And they want to do that. And with these elections, and this is about, the background of the elections and what they want to establish it. Secondly, about the legitimacy of the elections. I think that is, extremely questionable, that what kind of legitimacy these elections have, because everything is controlled by the lieutenant governor, and lieutenant governor is appointed by the BJP government, and for the last 10 years, and recently in the
before the announcement of the election schedule, also the powers of the lieutenant general have been increased manifold.
Exactly, the administrative powers have been increased, and the power to transfer, the power to posting. And even before the elections, before the announcement of the elections, there were massive reshuffle in the administration. A lot of Indian administrative officers, Kashmir administrative officers, almost I think more than 600 people, they got transferred to different positions.
Is it all being done to maintain central control?
That means that they want to have their desired result. Because of that, they have posted there. And with this, background, and with this shenanigans and the power which the lieutenant governor is enjoying, I seriously doubt that what kind of power the chief minister will have, what kind of credibility the assembly will have. So I think this would be a facade, because the election, the requirements, the integrity and the credibility and the fair play, I think that is the questionable number one.
Fair play has been questionable since so many decades.
Exactly, you are right. But what they want to do is that they have ensured and they have taken all these steps so that they can have their own chief minister, though that would be a toothless, but still they want to do that.
A puppet chief minister, basically.
The puppet chief minister, because what kind of gerrymandering that they have done by through this delimitation commission, that the number of seats, if you see that, the population of Jammu is part of the whole state of Jammu and Kashmir, but the number of seats from 37 to 43, 6 seats have been immediately increased, and this is quite contrary to their proportion of the population. On the contrary, the population is bigger in the valley, but there is only 1 seat that is being increased, and the total tally is from 46 to 47. I think with this number, this is number one. Second thing is that they have, some of the seats they have been allocated, that they have decided in that delimitation commission that 9 seats would be for the scheduled tribe people, or the candidates must be with this background, and the 7 seats would be from scheduled caste candidates. So if you see that, because majority of these people, they are not Muslims, you know. So I think that with this you know, inclusion of scheduled tribe and scheduled caste, and then the increase of the Jammu seat from 37 to 46, they want to install their chief minister, and after doing so, they want to legitimize whatever they have done in the last decade.
But you know, Dr. Awais, I'd like to also you know, highlight what the opposition or other leaders have been saying, whether it be Mehbooba Mufti, who describes all these actions that are being taken in reducing Azad Jammu and not Azad, but in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir to a municipality. Umar Abdullah says the Chief Minister's office has been downgraded to a powerless rubber stamp. Congress condemns it as a murder of democracy. Will these statements have any effect whatsoever on whatever the Indian government wants to or is trying to achieve?
Now I think that the world should pay heed to that. The world should lend ears to these statements, because these are the people and these are the parties, they have been considered, and even now that they are considered the pro-India parties. Either it is National Conference or PDP, right? But if, you know, they are saying so about the credibility of these elections or about the power of the assembly or the chief minister, and they do not you know, repose trust on the whole process of this election, you know, this process which is going to be held in 3 phases. I think that that message should be put across the world, the concerned quarters, to ascertain the credibility of these elections, that this is not the resistance camp is not saying it, Pakistan is not saying it, human rights commissions are not, their own people, you know, they for the last 7 decades, they have prepared them, they have installed them, they have been serving, capitalizing the interest of New Delhi over there, they are saying so. So now it speaks volume, you know,
but
what kind of occupation
there's a
is
difference
there?
between speaking volumes and actually some kind of implementation, because look at the denial of the right to freedom of expression, the denial of freedom of so many kinds, all the incarcerations, the violence that has been going on in the Indian Hill Valley. And despite that, there are some reports that come out time and again, there are some statements that come out, but no tangible action, no tangible pressure tactic is put on India. Is this also deliberate in your point of view? Because of course India serves their purpose geopolitically or geostrategically.
Exactly, this duplicity is quite evident in case of India, that because of their geopolitical considerations and expediencies, I think that it gets eclipsed what India is doing, not only in Kashmir but in the region. And because of India's obdurance and because of India's hegemonic approach, this, for example, the forum of SAARC that become redundant because of this approach.
True.
And I think that the same thing may be escalated in other forums in which India is now, it has become part of it, for example, SCO. So I think that the world should go beyond the economic interest and the geopolitical
or
interest.
have the economic interest, but at the same time, you know, pressurize India so as to, you know, for it to revert a lot of action that has been taking specifically concerning in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir and also Muslims within India. It's just not relegated to the Kashmir Valley.
Exactly. When it comes to the Muslims or by and large the minorities in India, the plight or the picture is very bleak. And if you see the Citizenship Act, and if you see other legislation and other happenings and the incidents which are taking place, so I think that I always cite this quotation that it is safer to be a cow in India than to be a Muslim, because they have been so you know, marginalized, they have been pushed to the wall. Recently I came across an incident, 2 schoolboys, there was a, you know, spat, there was a fight, and a Muslim boy, you know, he injured the other boy, and it's unfortunate, but usually happen in sometimes between children, but it turned out to a communal incident over there, you know, against the Muslims and Muslims people over there. So I think that this kind of persecution, this kind of marginalization against Muslims, against Christians, against Dalits and other minorities.
Against human rights activists, against journalists, against political leaders, against Kashmiri activists, against the normal citizens of an illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. The list goes on and on. Who can forget the pellet gun incidents that happened? Who can forget the rapes? Who can forget the incarcerations? How many Kashmiri leaders are currently in prison as we speak, and in a despicable situation in prisons as we speak? Human Rights Watch talks about what has been happening, the repressive policies in the valley, and slams India. But what happens? I mean, it is relegated to a report and nothing happens. Exactly. But what the people of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir need is genuine action by world bodies, by those who matter.
You know, this thing is very important in this way, that this is not a conventional conflict. This is a conflict which has a nuclear dimension attached to that.
Agreed.
And I think that ignoring it and condoning it, may trigger something which could be, quite disastrous. And Umar Abdullah, their chief minister, recently, I think a couple of months or 1 or 2 years back, that he said that there is a volcano which is being erupted in Kashmir. So once that volcano is erupted, and it would be escalated, because India, Pakistan, the countries, they have the history of war-ridden past. So keeping this context in view and the nuclear dimension attached to that, I think that this kind of ignorance would be quite catastrophic. The world should seriously pay heed to that and try to address this issue instead of managing that issue. Sometimes when such kind of conflict emerges, the world power intervenes, and that intervention is only for the management, not for the final resolution of that.
How important is the role of the United Nations? Because of course it has been paramount since 1948 as far as the resolution is concerned, as far as the statement is concerned, as far as Pakistan's participation in it, and highlighting the plight of the people of IIOJK is concerned. Also, I'd like to understand, how do you see Pakistan's role in different fora, whether it be the United Nations, whether it be the SCO, whether it be all the other fora where Pakistan has highlighted and continues to highlight the plight of the Kashmiris, and also Pakistan's political, moral and diplomatic support to them?
Yes, the first part is the role of the United Nations. I think that the role of United Nations is important, very important, because the raison d'etre or the basic creation of United Nations is meant to to prevent conflicts. That was basically the reason of that. But when it comes to the performance of that, though United Nations, it adopted multiple resolutions, Security Council and the other resolutions also, but when it comes to the implementation of that, the role is quite unfortunate and quite disappointing. So I think that the United States should play a role, and United States should implement its own resolutions and its own decision, because these resolutions are not just the moral lessons. These resolutions are akin to the decision of the United Nations. So it's not a 1 or 2 resolutions. There are more than a dozen resolutions adopted by the United Nations. So number one. And second thing is, the passage of time does not make an issue invalidate. So if 75 years or even 1 century has been passed, and we say that since issue is long standing at the past, so it doesn't.
It remains an issue.
It remains an issue.
As long as there are resolutions in the UN, it remains an issue until these resolutions are not implemented in letter and spirit, and a proper resolution is not happening. This remains an issue.
Exactly, that remains the problem, and still it remains on the question of the United Nations. For example, that in 5th of August there was a session of United Nations Security Council. Had that issue not been there in United Nations Security Council, how this issue could have been invoked for this United Security Resolution? So it means that issue is there under India-Pakistan question. There is
Dr. Awais, I feel there is a selective morality when it comes to Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir and all the important bodies that matter, because had it been any other country, any other issue that had been prevalent in the West, for example, they would have taken a very different stance. But here we see that 7 decades have passed and still nothing is being done. All is what it is being done is through letters, is through statements, is through reports, and this is where it ends.
One thing that I want to add is now this is not confined to something in India or Kashmir. It has been, you know, this transnational terrorism which India is doing.
Of course.
You know, what happened in Canada, and Canadian Prime Minister is saying, Justin Trudeau is saying that we have credible evidence. Is, you know, similarly in the United States of America, similarly there is a report, there is a documentary released in Australia, you know. If you see, and in Pakistan, 20 individuals they got killed, and Guardian, credible newspaper in the UK, that carried a story that India is behind all the 20 killings. You know,
and that's not the only thing that India is behind. Even what is happening now in Balochistan, also there are credible, you know, proofs that India is one of the major elements behind this. But anyways, what I wanted to highlight in this very segment is the plight of the Kashmiri people, and let's hope, both of us being Kashmiris also, let's hope that some kind of resolve comes only if in the form of the right to self-determination, before the whole, you know, demography of the Hill Valley changes because of the laws that India has implemented. Thank you very much, Dr. Awais bin Wasi, Kashmiri Affairs expert, to have joined us, and thank you very much to have come all the way to the studio. It's a pleasure to have you here. Let's come to our last two stories, ladies and gentlemen. The first concerns Donald Trump. Now, he is going to face a revised federal indictment. He thought that the famous indictment to overturn, that he was trying to overturn his 2020 election loss, and he was saying that it was all the fault, but somehow there was a little leeway that the Supreme Court has given. Now he faces a revised federal indictment accusing him of illegally trying to overturn this election laws, with prosecutors narrowing this approach after the US Supreme Court had a ruling that the former presidents have broad immunity from criminal prosecution. This is what he thought would, you know, save him. But now a US special counsel team obtained the superseding indictment in the Washington case, though it was highly unlikely to proceed to trial ahead of the November 5 election. But the revised indictment lays out the same 4 charges prosecutors brought against the former president last year, but this one focuses on Trump's role as a political candidate seeking re-election rather than the president at a time. This changes a lot of things as far as his indictment is concerned. Finally, the annual Redhead Days festival is happening across the world. Thousands of people have gathered in the Netherlands this weekend to celebrate their red hair in this festival. And of course, this is something that has been happening since quite a number of years in the Netherlands, and this is a way of all the redheads across the world to get together to celebrate and to also you know, highlight their individual identity in that respect. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new story segments that pertain to us, you in Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.